Tonight's Hyunjin's outing started off really tough. What did you see, and what is your assessment?
Well, I think first, anytime you face that New York Yankees lineup, even though their record isn't that strong, they've got a couple of guys that still possess a lot of pop. And that's what Hyunjin Ryu found out pretty early on. And when he tried to get a couple of fastballs in a ballpark where the ball has been flying out so far this season, he learned really quick he's got to be pinpoint with fastballs no matter the record of the opponent. I think more than any start to this point, the year two, those fastballs got a little bit too fat. They got barreled up, and they found themselves going over the wall. So Hyunjin Ryu kind of retooled the entire game plan, and he didn't throw a lot of fastballs after that. And it looked like a lot of change-ups and curveballs, featuring both of the curveballs that he throws. He's got the loopy one, but then he's got the little bit of a firmer curveball, and that's how he was trying to grind through the next four innings. But for me, that first inning is what kind of rocked him back on his heels a little bit, and he tried to pitch backwards then against the rest of the Yankee lineup from the second inning on.
Well, you know these Yankee guys more than I do. So what do you think he needs to do to get better results next time when Hyunjin faces them?
Well, he's going to face them a lot, right? Because of the way that the schedule is lined up. The Blue Jays face the New York Yankees for 10 games in a span of 17 games. So just by pure mathematics, he's going to have a couple of more starts against New York. If it's finding a quadrant or at least one of the 9 zones to throw those fastballs in at a better rate, maybe it's pound guys inside. I don't think he can set guys up with the fastball away, but I like Hyunjin Ryu when he establishes fastball command first and foremost, because everything plays off it that much better, especially that devastating changeup against those heavy, hot-hitting power bats on the right side of the plate. So, and by the time that Hyunjin maybe faces him for the third time, they might have Giancarlo Stanton back in the lineup. We maybe see Aaron Judge back in the lineup. So it only is going to get tougher for Hyunjin Ryu facing the New York Yankees. But for me, it always is going to start with fastball command for him.
Okay. The Blue Jays, they're looking pretty good right now. Are you confident that this team will get into the postseason? What's your confidence level?
I'm pretty confident. I really think this team thought they were good. A comeback like tonight, and there's a lot of baseball to be played over the next full 3 weeks, right? But this team is oozing with confidence. In a couple of the comebacks that they've had, the grinding out games that you've had against the Boston Red Sox, this team was going into this season thinking that people were underestimating them. They believe that they're good. Now they believe that they're really good. And I think that's first and foremost with a young team that is only going to continue to add as well. Bo Bichette should be back by the end of the week. You should have Ken Giles back at the end of the bullpen to lock up games as well. And that will provide a calming factor to a bullpen that really needs a breather. Maybe Nate Pearson comes back and can be a 1 or 2 inning guy out of that bullpen. And he's a guy that possesses triple-digit velocity as well. So the Blue Jays are going to continue to add and continue to get better with the pieces that they're bringing back in. So things are looking up for the Blue Jays, and they've got everything working in their favor to make a real run to lock up at least not only just one of the 8 spots, but maybe in that 5 to 6 range too as the seeding goes. And that is a big advantage because then you can avoid a couple of the top tier teams.
One last question. The Korean fans here are a little bit concerned because this is 2 years in a row when Hyunjin gave up 3 home runs to the Yankee batters.
Yeah, sure. I think first and foremost you start with the New York Yankees, and then you look at how other teams in the American League East perform against Hyunjin Ryu. And I look at that Tampa Bay Rays lineup, on opening day. They had a lot of long grinding at bats, and that will not work in the favor of Hyunjin Ryu, somebody that they're always concerned about with his injury history, right, and the elevated pitch counts. When he's got to work in, Hyunjin Ryu is as good as anybody else. For Hyunjin Ryu, I think there's a lot to build on, and he probably learned a lot about how to handle the New York Yankees lineup and a lot of veteran bats that are in there. I'm not hitting the panic button whatsoever when it comes to Hyunjin Ryu lining up against the New York Yankees or anybody that's a beast from the East, if you will. I'm perfectly comfortable with where he is because he's also on a fact-finding mission, right? He's facing these teams and are going to face these teams that are going to see these lineups for a couple of times through. So I'm not worried. I don't think Korean baseball fans should be worried whatsoever on how Hyunjin Ryu is performing against the New York Yankees or anybody else in the American League East because he's going to learn a lot. And he's going to learn a lot this year, and it's going to benefit him in the years to come.
Okay. All right, Ben. Always the best. Thank you so much. Get some rest. I'll see you
It's good to see you again.
Same here, Ben. Take
All
care.
right.
How important was this win for the Blue Jays?
I think it was really important. They had a devastating doubleheader essentially on Sunday afternoon, and many things didn't go the Blue Jays' way. And it started early in the morning where they lost their most potent player and the biggest bat in the lineup in Bo Bichette. The good news is at the end of this day, we found out that maybe it's not as bad as what everybody was anticipating. But Bo Bichette's going to be out of the lineup for a really long time. That was devastating blow number one. You had two absolutely clunky ball games that broke down on the Blue Jays in a number of different ways, both mental lapses, physical errors, and maybe, subpar performances, both on the mound and at the plate, and more silly mistakes. Plus, then we found out more questions about the pitching situation for the Blue Jays, leaving Sunday where they didn't have their closer, Anthony Bass, in big situations, not only in the first game, but also in the second game. While he appeared to be in the bullpen, he wasn't available. So many questions going into game one against the Baltimore Orioles tonight. The Blue Jays desperately needed their bats to heat up. They needed to take some pressure off of Hyunjin Ryu, but they also needed a win to get back on track.
Hyunjin Ryu started out pretty well. He very calmly pitched early part of the game. Obviously, those runs in the third inning really helped. Is this what you expected from Hyunjin? Like when the team's not going well, he needs to be a stopper, and that's what he was tonight. Is that safe to say?
Absolutely. He was placed perfectly where the Blue Jays needed him in the most dire, and that is to be a stopper. And that's what you want from a number one in your rotation. And Hyunjin Ryu was every bit of that tonight, and the big man was really sharp on the mound against a pretty aggressive Baltimore Orioles lineup that is surprising not only the Baltimore Orioles, but their surprising baseball. The way they had been hitting, the way they had been scoring runs, aggressively doing so. This is a club that over the last week, Daniel, had averaged 7 runs per game. That's a tough lineup to slow down. But Hyunjin Ryu was doing it in a crafty way and not an overpowering way where he had really high strikeout numbers or, dominant performances in inning by inning. Just craftily going through every matchup, methodically working every count, and getting batters to get themselves out versus overpowering. To me, that was a classic Hyunjin Ryu outing tonight. Exactly what the Blue Jays expected when they got the lefty.
If you look at the stats, compared to what he did last time outing against the Marlins, it seemed a little bit different. He was getting ground out, like you mentioned, less strikeout. In terms of the process that he had, what did you see? What are some of the differences that you saw tonight?
You know what? I thought his fastball command tonight was way more aggressive and way more sharp on both sides of the plate. And for a left-handed hitter, okay, sometimes guys don't like to pound guys inside. I saw a little bit more of assertiveness on the inside part of the plate. And tonight we saw that softer curveball featured as well. And I thought maybe that would be a big jumping out point for a lineup like is in Baltimore. Hyunjin Ryu realized it, looking at the video, obviously talking to people in the scouting report, that this is a much more aggressive lineup. So even with that aggressiveness, he used the curveball to set up a lot of outs, and I thought that was a really masterful plan that he had.
Obviously, none of us can't be around the players, around the team right now, unfortunately. But just given the short time that you had since the game ended, talking to your colleagues, what's been the assessment of Hyunjin's tonight?
He's getting stronger. He's getting more effective. And I think that's not a product of where he's been over the last couple of weeks. That's the product of where baseball has been over the last couple of months and getting ramped up for spring training, then the long shutdown. Of course, he had some personal growth as well with his wife and him welcoming their first child. That's a lot of change for one individual, whether or not you're a baseball player or not. And then getting ramped back up through summer camp. He was elevating his pitch count. Maybe he wasn't as sharp the first couple of times out, but now you're starting everything to see the one pitch count to the innings and also the sharpness of the pitches. And that's what I walk away from this ball game more excited about is the sharpness of the pitches and the ability to get deeper into a ball. He goes through 6 innings tonight. He masterfully does that. I think if it wasn't for a long top of the 7th inning, Hyunjin Ryu would have gone out for the 7th inning. But because of the lengthy at-bat that the Blue Jays had in that 7th, that was an easy decision for manager Charlie Montoyo and the pitching coach Pete Walker to back off the reins a little bit and take the house money that they had. That was a win tonight for Hyunjin Ryu, and it was a huge win for the Blue Jays.
One last question. We obviously weren't following the Blue Jays last year. We were focused on Dodgers and Hyunjin. So every time I speak to you or anyone from the members of the media in the Toronto area, they all tell me we didn't have an ace last year for a couple of years. We have an ace right now. Is that safe to say that you truly feel that the Jays have a legitimate ace that you can go to in times like this?
It's been a while since the Blue Jays had a stopper on the mound. They've got the guy now. They got the guy that they wanted in free agency. Hyunjin Ryu is developing into that guy, and again, he keeps getting sharper and the ability to get deeper into a ball game. And the Blue Jays want to be careful with Hyunjin Ryu. They obviously know the track record with the injuries, but what he is showing them is a guy that is ready to take the ball every fifth day, and that's what you want from your number one starter, and a guy that is budding into the A's, both on the mound, but also the personality in the clubhouse. And that's another really big calling card for Hyunjin Ryu and how he connects not only with his coaches, but also his teammates. He's beloved, and you can see it on his teammates' faces when they walk into the dugout and congratulate him on striking out the side. Or we saw the athlete of Hyunjin Ryu tonight when he came off the mound and he was challenged by fielding a couple of bunts, and he did so flawlessly. And the guys kind of ribbed him, being an athlete and fielding his position. He's having a lot of fun out there. They're having a lot of fun with him. And by the way, he's getting the job done. So absolutely, he is turning into that ace that the Blue Jays desperately needed.
Only thing that's disappointing part of Hyunjin's season so far is the fact that he can't do this at Rogers Center in front of the Blue Jays fans. It would have been awesome. Hopefully we'll get to that some point next year. But thank you so much for your time. And,
I hope so too, Daniel, and hopefully we can see you in Toronto.
Right.
It's my pleasure to be with you.